When you're looking at similar properties in the same neighborhood, yes, you can use rent yields to objectively compare them to find the best opportunity. You can do this because their appreciation rates will be similar because it's in the same area. The rental situation is also similar, which means other variables like vacancies and tenant turnover are also more or less the same. But if you're comparing different types of properties like condos versus houses, or properties in different areas like Toronto versus Hamilton, don't forget to factor other variables in as well on top of rents. In this video, let's talk about key things to consider when you're comparing different types of properties in varying locations and how they might impact your final ROI number. If you like content like this, please give this video a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe to our channel so you don't miss other videos like this made specifically for real estate investors in Toronto. Let's talk about appreciation first. Different locations and different types of properties can have pretty different appreciation rates. If you ask us, this is actually the most important factor in the real estate investing equation. To put this into perspective, if you're comparing two opportunities that have a 2% difference in appreciation over a 5-year period, that's a 10% difference. On a $1 million property, that's a $100,000 difference in returns. So now that you have a better perspective, let's see how much properties have appreciated in select cities across Ontario over the past 10 years based on data from listings.ca. In the last 10 years, Toronto has seen the best appreciation, followed by Vaughan, then Oshawa and Barrie, and surprisingly, a city that many investors are attracted to, Hamilton, actually has had the lowest appreciation over the past 10 years. So if you bought that same $1 million property 10 years ago, today it would be worth $2.3 million in Toronto, and you would have made $1.3 million. If you bought a $1 million property in Hamilton instead, then it would now be worth $2.03 million, meaning that you would have made $1.03 million. A 27% difference in appreciation is equivalent to a huge $270,000 difference in returns on a $1 million property, which is why we continue to insist that finding properties with the best appreciation is so important. The next one on our list is, of course, rent yields, which most investors already factor in. Historically, there's a premium to buying Toronto real estate, so that might translate to lower rent yields in Toronto compared to other cities with lower property prices. Let's assume you can get 10% better rent yields outside of Toronto. Now, the important thing here to keep in mind is that you're using the exact same scale. A lot of times when people talk about gains in rent yields, they're looking at a percentage of a percentage. So a 10% gain means that the rent yield goes from 4% to 4.4%. On the other hand, when they talk about appreciation, they're looking at absolute differences. So they might be comparing 5% to 7% and calling that a 2% difference. Remember, this is not the same scale. A 2% difference here is actually a 40% gain, so it's actually a huge gain in the grand scheme of things. If you look at it another way, to break even on a 10% difference in rents on a $1 million property in Toronto getting $40,000 in annual rents, appreciation only needs to be $4,000 more per year. In other words, Toronto just needs 0.4% more in annual appreciation. We just saw that Toronto had 27% higher appreciation versus Hamilton over the past 10 years, so that's definitely more than 0.4% per year. And because of that, Toronto still wins by a mile. Another thing to keep in mind is that vacancies might be different. For example, if your tenants turn over every 2 years and each time in between tenants you have a 1-month vacancy, that's a 1 over 24 or 4% vacancy rate. This means you'll need to reduce your rent assumptions by 4%. And so effectively, this would be the same as if you're investing in another property that has 4% lower rents but no vacancies. The final thing to keep in mind is the tenant turnover frequency. When tenants stay in your property, you are limited with rent increases by a government-regulated percentage. This year, it's none. Last year, it was 2.2%, and in 2019, it was 1.8%. On the other hand, actual rents can grow at a much quicker rate. Rents have dropped 15 to 20% in Toronto because of COVID, but we've appeared to have stabilized and we're slowly recovering right now. For your information, TorontoRentals.com predicts that we're looking at around a 13 to 14% increase in rents in Toronto in 2022. And even at that point, we're still sitting slightly below the rent price peak set back in 2019. So now let's consider a more conservative rent growth rate at say 4%, which is actually what Toronto has been seeing over the past 10 years. Having tenants turn over less means that you'll be getting 9% less rents by year 5. If you add up the differences over the 5-year period, you'll be getting 21% less rents over the 5-year period in total. So turnover is definitely an important factor to consider. The best tip is that if you're comparing opportunities in different markets, you really need to understand the ins and outs of that real estate market. What the appreciation is like, what the rents are like, how vacancies are like, how often tenants typically turn over, so that you can have better return projections, which will ultimately help you make better investment decisions. And if rent yields are lower, remember that a 10% drop in rents on a $1 million property might only mean a $4,000 difference in annual returns. And that difference might even be less when you factor in differences in vacancies and tenant turnover. So it's actually not as important as, say, a 10% drop in price, which has a much bigger impact to your ROI. If you're looking to invest in Toronto, we can help you fill in the blanks. We can give you historical data, future projections, and more details like how the tenant profile in different pockets are like, which might affect vacancies and turnover rates. If you want to connect with us, just reach out. I'll put a link to contact us in the description below. Don't forget to hit the thumbs up button while you're there. And if you want to stay in touch with us more regularly, look for us on Facebook, Instagram, or LinkedIn. I wish you all the best in your real estate and investing journey. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye now.